Hello, everybody. Once again, I'm Lee McCrafton Jr., aka Zorwalchan Less Than Guru. Today, we will talk about armor. I have mentioned in previous videos that Palladium First Edition, you will find contradictory rules. You will find two rules that cover the same thing and are different. And armor is one of them. One of the things I do like about Palladium is anybody can wear armor. Casters can wear armor and they can still cast spells, but it gives them penalties for movement, speed, things like that. And I agree with it. I don't like D&D where if you're a cleric, your modern cleric wears heavy armor, they can't cast spells. But the medium armor, the chainmail is fine, but the plain mail isn't, unless you buy feats and have feat taxes and things like that. But when you do get into Palladium, there's contradictory things, so I will go over those. But first, we'll look at men of arms restrictions down here at the bottom. It says warriors are not plagued by any restrictions when using light armor. That makes sense. They're trained in it. But even those trained in heavy armor find some insurmountable limitation. The weight of it reduces the character's natural speed by 2 points. And that seems fine for me. You're in heavy armor, your speed's going to be lower. I don't have a problem with that. And then that heavy armor is going to clank, unless you get soundless armor, noiseless armor, and then that's a great magical item that you can introduce that says no matter how stealthily they try to move, they clank and reduce your prowl by 40 points. Completely agree with that. That's fine. Then immediately is followed by non-men of arms, arms, and armor restrictions. It says that they can wear armor. They're not trained, will find light armor such as cloth, blah, blah, fairly comfortable and unrestricted. There are no restrictions. That's fine. Mage wearing cloth armor, robes, whatever. They're not going to be restricted. But heavy armor, it says including half suits, is another story. So basically we get down here, weight reduces the character speed by half. Movement impaired. Characters are -2 to parry and dodge. And characters in half suits, so that medium kind of level of suits, are -1 to parry and dodge, and prowl is impossible, okay? So they state a rule. Here's a rule, and this is for non-men of arms in armor restrictions. So you would think that that would apply to wizards, but then you look at wizards in armor, and it says wearing heavy armor, which includes all armors between double mail through plate, reduces speed by a half, prowl by 3/4. Over here, you can't prowl at all. Prowl is impossible. Prowl by 3/4. Strikes, dodges, and parries are -2. Okay, so if we look here, their half suits are -1 and the full are -2. It says consequently, they prefer light armor. This does not hamper. Wizards can also wear light chain, but prowl is reduced by half and speed by 4th. No minuses to strike, parry, and dodge. Back here, you have a -1 to parry and dodge. And so you might go, okay, that's just wizards. But then when you look at other occupations like clergy in armor, it says clergy fall into the same categories as wizards and witch, preferring light armor. However, if they're trained in men of arms, OCCs, hand-to-hand combat, then they do not suffer penalties listed under wizards and armor. It doesn't say that they suffer the penalties for, I mean, you can infer that they do penalties for men of arms, but it doesn't state it. But it says otherwise use wizards. So basically this non-men of arms, arm and armor restrictions is stated, and then it's changed immediately and never used again. And there was something that I wanted to do, like I said, in how I separated more categories, that I have different categories. And even with men of arms, you have somebody like a long bowman who is a man of arms, and I agree with that being a man of arms because they're not necessarily rangers, and they have rangers as men of arms. I put them into the rogue category. But basically what I did is I went through every OCC and I gave them an armor tier. So at tier number 1, no movement penalties, no combat penalties, -4 to prowl with heavy armor, no penalties with light. So if you're a man of arms, I just say tier 1, And this is the rule. If they're wearing light armor, they don't have to worry about it. If they're wearing heavy armor, then they're going to have that -40 to prowl because of the clanking and the noise. Otherwise, no problem. Tier 2, that's where I get things like my my entertainers, because it doesn't say anything about that when you get into Adventures of the High Seas and the other, which are not quite men of arms, not wizards either. So I made a rogue-ish category, entertainer category in that. That's where I have tier 2, which is they don't have penalties for light armor, but they have a -2 to PP for movement only. And that's because, as I stated in one of my first episodes in this playlist, is I don't have the speed attribute, but I affect move. So I'm not affecting PP directly. I'm just affecting the movement value that is derived. So that derived attribute of movement. But it's kind of the same thing. And also, when we start looking at the wizards in armor, where you're a half and prowl by 3/4 and stuff like that, I just wanted flat negatives, flat penalties. So in mine, they just get a -40 to prowl. And then when I get to tier 3, that's my wizards and the people that aren't necessarily trained in armor. That's half of the PP for calculating movement. So you just divide by 2, round down, get that derived movement, and then -2 to parry and dodge. They can't prowl in heavy armor. And then they have a -2 for PP for calculating movement, -1 to parry dodge, -40 to prowl in light armor. So very close to what the tier 2 is in heavy armor. That applies to them in light armor. So you could change these values as you want, but if you are playing Palladium and you want to play straight by the rules as written, one of the things you're going to have to figure out is, do I use the non-men of arms and restrictions for the clergy and the men of magic, or do I use the wizards in armor for the clergy and the magic? So that's one of those things that you'll have to decide. I decided to go case by case, occupational character class. That's the way that I did it. You might do it otherwise, but be aware there are contrary rules, and it's something that you will have to decide on your own. So having said that, once again, I am Liam Crafton Jr., aka Zorvalchan Less Than Guru, and until next time, I will catch you later.